First of all, I'd like to take a moment to tell you what I think I know about you.
Okay.
So you could validate whether I'm on point or whether I need to head another direction.
Okay.
So you are the chairman, president, and CEO of Perkins Management Services.
That's correct.
All right. And that, for those of you that don't know what that is, that's a multi-million-dollar enterprise that services universities, colleges, hospitals, the Department of Defense. So you've been a little busy with that, huh?
I have been, yes.
You're also the CEO and founder of Black Titan Investments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And my understanding, you made a little purchase last year or so of Fuddruckers restaurants. Is
That's
that correct?
correct, yes.
So Fuddruckers, for those of you that don't know, is a gourmet burger chain.
That's right.
That is in Canada, Panama, Mexico, and 85 locations in the U.S.
That's correct.
All right. And that transaction was about $18.5 million, a little bit more than my son's weekly allowance there. You were born in Fayetteville, North Carolina?
Right.
You make me feel old, so I'm not going to say when, but you made this purchase in your 40s.
Yes.
You started your first business at age 24.
That's right.
So I'd like to explore that a little bit because some of these students will be graduating.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the folks listening to us on the vodcast are young and want to start their own business. And I also, if I got the information correct, your favorite burger of the chain is a 2/3 burger?
That's right.
Medium well.
That's right.
Did I do my homework?
You did your homework. Impressive.
First African American to own a national hamburger franchise system?
That's right.
Okay. Your undergrad's Fayetteville State University and an MBA from Howard University.
That's right.
Okay, I've done my homework. Mm-hmm. So now that I've told you what I do know, what I couldn't find is personal. All your business stuff is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe some of your hobbies, heroes, mentors, those kinds of things?
Absolutely.
What do you do on your spare time?
Sure.
You're not running all these companies?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me here today. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be here today and to have the opportunity to meet you all and interact with you and hopefully answer any questions that you may have because I'm actually here at your disposal. So, anything that you can think to ask me about business and entrepreneurship, be more than happy to talk with you about that today. It always is a rewarding experience for me to have the opportunity to be able to interact, with our entrepreneurs of the future. So you asked me about what life is like outside of business. I'd like to know because my life is consumed with business all day and all night, to be quite frank.
Okay.
When you are in a highly competitive space, such as the space that I compete in right now, both in contract food service management, which is really what Perkins does. We manage cafeterias for colleges and universities, very similar to companies like Aramark and Sodexo.
Okay.
And, Fuddruckers, which is a turnaround brand that had kind of been sitting on the shelf for a while, and the former owner decided to liquidate their assets and they put Fuddruckers on the market, and we were fortunate enough to be able to compete and win. So we've owned that company for 1 year and 7 months now, so it's been a lot of TLC having to go into it to get it stabilized and then get it turned around, all while trying to manage and grow, our contract food service management business. So life for me pretty much has been consumed with work, to be quite frank. My schedule is constantly booked. It's a lot of demand, a lot of rigor. So I travel quite a bit and, constantly in front of a computer or behind a screen, a Zoom or something like that. So, but it's pretty involved.
Now, we talked a little bit about it in entrepreneurship class, but there are other students here as well.
Okay.
Can you explain to them basically what is a franchise, like when you buy a franchise, what it is that they get from a franchisor?
Yes. So when you look at the way that my business is structured, I started a company from scratch in Perkins Management. It was a company that I had envisioned while an undergraduate student. I literally took when I took my courses and we had to write business plans, marketing plans, and things of that nature, I actually wrote them for the company that I wanted to establish. And so people always ask, well, you did that so young. And I say, well, I just made the most effective use of my time, energy, resources, and professors at that point to get that company, established. Okay. But it was a company that was built from scratch. So all of the systems, infrastructure, recipes, everything I had to create.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But in a franchise, it's different. Because that's what you're buying. You're buying into a proven system. Okay. The systems, the know-how, the intellectual property, all of those, the design of a building. You get the benefit of marketing. You get the benefit of the construction and design. Okay. The restaurant design team, all of those things. Whenever you buy into a franchise, is buying into a proven system. Okay. And so, it's a bit easier to get started when you go into a franchise, especially as a startup, trying to get startup capital when you're buying into a system that's already proven. Okay. Right. So, although the tax ID number essentially would be a startup on a new business, but if you're buying into a franchise system, banks recognize that, develop a division around franchising because they know that they're investing into something that's already proven, as opposed to a company like Perkins, who was jumping right out into a red ocean that was already a mature market dominated by multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations. And here I am trying to turn a red ocean blue. So when you think about, from that vantage point, that potentially is a competitive advantage as it pertains to starting and establishing a new business versus buying into an already proven system as a franchisee.
Now I know you visit campuses all the time. Mm-hmm. I know you're an adjunct at Howard University. Yes. Mm-hmm. So for the young entrepreneur that potentially has access to capital, is it your recommendation that they look more towards franchising or pursuing that idea they have in their mind?
Oh no, I don't like to drive people toward where their dreams, goals, and visions should be, right? I believe that if a person wants to become an entrepreneur, I always tell people to, one, what is that thing that you could do every day and not get paid for doing, right? You can't really define a person's passion. That's one thing. The second thing is that you want to just start and establish a business that solves a problem. Okay. That a business that is going to improve the lives of your consumer, right? I caution people quite often from, positioning a product or a service that deals around people's discretionary income, more so along the lines of the things that people are going to need. That's how you develop more recession-proof businesses. Okay. So as I think about the food business and the restaurant business, we know that people have to eat. Okay. People don't necessarily have to have a Rolex watch, but they absolutely have to have food. Okay. Right? And so, when I thought about developing, my company, I wanted to develop a business around things that fell into a category of things that I knew that people would need. Now, does everybody have to eat a Fuddruckers hamburger? No. But there's a particular niche market that likes gourmet hamburgers as opposed to people who prefer more fast food. And so that's who we market toward.
So we'll hear an announcement soon about Fuddruckers coming close to campus?
Absolutely, yes, in Atlanta. It's a hot area for us. It's a target market for us. We've met with several potential franchisees about the Atlanta market and surrounding counties.
Okay. So as a social scientist, we collect data and we organize that data and study patterns. And I'm often could be quoted in my classroom talking about success leaves clues. Mm-hmm. Success leaves clues. So the goal at the end of the day is to get a clue. Mm-hmm. We hear a lot about the word failure. Mm-hmm. And we don't associate it with names like Oprah Winfrey, who had challenges coming out the gate, Jay-Z, mm-hmm. who had challenges coming out the gate. We just see billionaires, mm-hmm. Walt Disney, who everyone thought his ideas were silly, mm-hmm. basing a whole system around a mouse. Can you tell us an example of a failure that you had that you learned from, and sort of what are the principles that you gather from when failures come that our students and folks watching us can sort of take and sort of model in their own mind? Hey, we're going to fail, but this is how you sort of pull the right things out of it.
Yeah, I believe that people must understand that failure, if you will, is, if you want to consider it as a failure, and to me, it's all in which the lens you see it through, because the thing that you wanted to happen that didn't happen the way you wanted it to happen doesn't mean that it won't ever happen. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I believe that most people look at the end result of a success and don't understand everything that went into that person getting there. And people oftentimes don't talk enough about those challenges that they may have had in the front end that they had to persevere through in order to wind up where they are. Okay. I was one of 149 interested bidders for Fuddruckers. It was not just an exclusive, hey, here's Nicholas Perkins, okay? So there were times during that competitive bid process that the former owner had gone exclusive with other companies. I just never gave up. So I just hung out on the sideline. Now, one could have viewed the initial no and walked away and went, on to another particular project, but I never did that. I continued to express my interest, went back and find ways to refine my offer so that in the event that particular offer deal that they were working on fell through, that I had another one ready to go. Okay. And so, it's all in the manner in which you approach the circumstance, right? And so I'm not a person that really, takes no for an answer. You got to survey the lay of the land. And, you got to be persistent, and you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in the product that you are offering, and you've got to, I'm just the type of guy who just jumped in the ring with big companies, right? Like, I've always fought against the Aramark, Sodexo, the Chartwells of the world. So that's all I know, right, is wrestling with behemoths, if you will. Now, some of that has to do with my background of being a defensive lineman and playing football in college and in high school and understanding how to deal with, an offensive tackle and a guard.
You're going to leave something for the short guys that didn't play. Okay.
So, I think that competitive spirit, that understanding of how to deal with, people who may be bigger than you doesn't necessarily mean that they are better than you, right? And so you've got to have a lot of self-confidence, I believe. You've got to be mentally strong, mentally tough in order to be an entrepreneur, because the sun doesn't always shine, to your point, right? I mean, there are times where, everything seems to be clicking on all cylinders. And then there are times when things, do not appear to be. And so you, as the chief executive, have got to be able to steer that ship in the right direction.
And Oglethorpe's an interesting university. While we have a small footprint, we have a large percentage of our students that are student athletes. What are some lessons that you pulled directly out of your college years in sports? I know to the left of me how many baseball players we have. I know a lot of them because they're in my class by raising their hand. So we have a percentage of the baseball team here today.
Yes.
And other student athletes in the room, raise hand. So half the room is filled with student athletes. What are some of the things you pulled from that help you in your business pursuits?
Well, I tell you that, team sports for me was central, I think, to understanding, how to pull the best out of people. I kind of went from being a player to the coach. You constantly have to, motivate people, understand what drives them, making sure that everybody that's on the team is working toward the same common goal. But when you are a student athlete, you recognize that you have to push yourself beyond limits that your mind may be telling you that your body can't go any further, but you have to push yourself through that in order to be at that breaking point, right? At that point you recognize that you didn't break, and that there was more in you, right, that can push you toward, ultimately reaching the goal that you want to, as an athlete. And those points I've seen in business, I mean, and the reality is that I reflect back on those moments quite often. And I recognize that they were, central to development of, I think, my own mental toughness. And my ability to be able to lead the people around me. And then recognizing that I can't do it by myself. I have to be able to get the best out of the people who are with me, understanding that everybody that's with me is competing for the same common goal.
Gotcha. So the biggest buckets when you get ready to graduate from undergrad at a university, and again, I'm speaking to the room and anyone that may be watching us in the vodcast that's getting ready to graduate, is clearly go out and get a job. The second big bucket is go to grad school or professional. The smallest bucket is become an entrepreneur. So what drove you to be an entrepreneur just coming out of college, and sort of what are some thoughts you would drop out there for those who are thinking about it right now as they're looking at graduation? We're in the graduation months right now. So.
Well, for me, a lot of it had to deal with my background in particular. And the way in which I was raised and the circumstance under which I was raised. I grew up in a very poor, very, economically disenfranchised family. The community that we grew up in, there was a lot of poverty around. When I was in undergraduate school, I began to learn about entrepreneurs who had come from similar backgrounds that I did, and were able to build a substantial amount of wealth through entrepreneurship. And I thought them to be not just entrepreneurs, but also social entrepreneurs. I saw that the wealth that could be created through leveraging entrepreneurship could have a direct impact in dealing with some of the social issues that persisted during those different time periods. And that really intrigued me. And so I consider myself to be somewhat of a social entrepreneur as well. And I know that while I'm still, I've, enjoyed some modicum of success, when I think about, the things that I've been able to do as a social entrepreneur, those things have really meant more to me than, say the transaction that I was able to do, at my 40th birthday, with Fuddruckers. But when I think about what motivated me, it was really a race against poverty, I would say, and understanding that entrepreneurship really can be a tool to help to create a wealth that could help to deal with some of those issues.
Okay, so you've had quite a bit of success. Who does Nicholas Perkins look to motivate him, to inspire him to what will be next?
Yes. So I would say one is a man that I learned about. His name was A.G. Gaston. And Dr. Gaston was an entrepreneur from Birmingham, Alabama. And Dr. Gaston became an instant hero of mine because we learned about a concept of vertical integration as a way to maximize efficiencies in the company and also maximize profitability. But Dr. Gaston, knowingly or unknowingly during his career, really can be credited with the development of vertical integration because we've not seen that, from my understanding, done before. But what the thing that fascinated me about Dr. Gaston was that he single-handedly established an African-American middle class in the city of Birmingham, which was during that time the most thoroughly segregated city in America. And so Dr. Gaston was able to create businesses that established an African-American middle class. He created banks where his employees were able to get loans to buy homes and pay for their kids' college education.
Okay.
He owned, an insurance agency, funeral homes, owned the cemetery, everything. So literally everything just kind of went in a circle. And he became Alabama's first black millionaire. So when I learned, he became Entrepreneur of the Century, right? So I saw this Black Enterprise magazine that had A.G. Gasson on the cover of it as Entrepreneur of the Century. So I immediately dived in and learned that there was a book that was called The Black Titan. And I got that book and I learned all about A.G. Gasson, became completely obsessed with his story because of the odds that he had to face and then where he came from, his background. So A.G. Gasson single-handedly for me is my hero. So that's where the name Black Titan for the acquisition of Fuddruckers came from.
Okay.
In honor of Dr. Gasson. And then I would say Reginald Lewis also was a great inspiration for me for his acquisition of TLC Beatrice.
Okay.
Because when I got the Fuddruckers acquisition done, so many people were coming to me saying, "Oh, you're the next Reginald Lewis," and I'm saying, "No way." I mean, this guy, just because I did this, he bought $1 billion company. I was 13 when he did it, but the reality is that it was sad that no one else had done anything of that magnitude since that time, to rival it. Okay. But at the same time, I could appreciate, people recognizing me in that light, but I certainly don't feel that way.
Well, that transitions very well to an interview I saw online.
Okay.
One of your goals is to be the first African-American billionaire through food service industry.
The goal is to build the first African-American owned $1 billion contract food service management company, yes. Wow. Because that's not been done before.
Okay.
And so I'm motivated to attempt to do that.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Fantastic. Now, we like to make this a very interactive session.
Certainly.
So I'd like to open up and pass the mic to the audience, to anyone that would like to ask a question at this time. So by raise of hands, I'll come visit you with the mic. And I know this is not a bashful crowd because half of you in my class and you talk all the time. Okay. Oh, at the bank. Hold on a sec.
So listening to your experiences, you're a very successful person. And I just, you talked about how not every day it's going to be a sunny day and you're going to have some hardships. What are the things that you did to help you find motivation to get through some of the not so sunny days?
And I have to tell you that, I'm not a person that's really motivated by money. You meet a lot of entrepreneurs who are really motivated by money. Money isn't the thing that motivates me every day to get up and be in the fight that I'm in. It's really the goal, the ultimate mission that I have, like I said, to build a company and build a brand that can rival some of my multi-billion-dollar, multinational competitors. And the reality is that that's what motivates me, right? And then I think about the people that I employ, and I think about how my business and my dreams and goals have been able to assist them and being able to create and sustain a livelihood for themselves, right? So every day when you recognize, and I've got about 1,000 employees in my company, that every single day I'm helping them in their daily lives be able to provide, a means for them to be able to take care of their family. So things like that really motivate me and keep me going. Now, at the end of the day, I like to make money, right? But that isn't the thing I think that motivates me and drives me every day. It's more things like that.
Great question. Anyone else? All right. I know you're good for a question.
It's not a serious question. I actually had a conversation with Dr. Carson, and we were talking about how there's like a direct correlation between successful people and waking up early. So I'm just curious, do you wake up pretty early or do you tend to stay up a little bit later?
I work late and get up early, right? So I tend to burn the candle at both ends, right? So, there is a balance that I can tell you in my 42nd year on this earth, and that is trying to create more of a work-life balance, right? I have enjoyed some success because I tend to say I outwork my competitors. I work while they sleep, but the reality is that, and talking to my doctor, that's not the most sustainable way to go about this thing. So right now I'm trying to ensure that I get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. There's constantly always something that requires my attention, but he always tells me that there is tomorrow. So I'm starting to learn that a bit more. And take better care of my rest, because he's told me that your brain regenerates, the cells in your body regenerate and you need to give your mind a rest and you let your body catch up. So I'm trying to learn how to do that a little bit more.
So what are you, like 5, 6, 7, 8?
I say between 5, 5.5.
Okay.
But on the weekend I catch more. On the weekend, but during the week, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My
You go.
Dr. Carson mentioned that you had an investment company or something of the sorts. What advice do you have for someone trying to get into investing, starting out?
Well, I'm not really an expert, to be quite frank, in investing. I actually kind of depend on other people to do it for me. That's what we named the company, because it was and I actually just kind of invested because no one really believed in it, to be quite frank. I bought this company in the pandemic, right? So all I heard were no's. No one wanted to be involved in a business that had declines in year-over-year sales. Everybody thought the foods industry was done forever. No one would ever go in a restaurant and eat again. All these crazy things, right? That I knew better than, but it was just fascinating to me how it influenced banking, right? And so, if I believed in it, I was going to have to be the person that was going to make the investment to do it, and that's what I had to do. So, I just created a company, called it Black Titan Investments. I established LLCs underneath that, for the restaurant operations, for the franchise operations, separated those, and, then created operating entities for each of the restaurants in the states that I had owned. And that's just kind of how I went about that. Now, anything that I may, invest in separately, I kind of leave that to the people who could pay attention to it every day. And I leave that to Charles Schwab.
All right, I think I'm going to have the closing question here.
Okay.
My 17-year-old who's looking at college asks a question that I actually hear on campus all the time. Not quite sure what I'm going to do next. What do I do with this degree? Get a quality education. For those that don't have it all figured out at 19, 20, and 21, what advice would you leave for these young folks and folks, again, that'll be viewing us on not having all the answers at 19, 20, and 21?
Yeah, well, I really don't know too many people who did have it all figured out at 19, 20, and 21. And I think you should leave yourself room for that, right? But again, I'm biased to entrepreneurship, right? And the reality is that, that level of creativity, innovation, I don't know of another career that lends you that much flexibility, right? And so, the beautiful thing about entrepreneurs is that we solve problems, right? And when I think about blue ocean companies like Apple who lead in industry, they really kind of tell consumers what they should have, what they should need, right? So I encourage you guys, if you have not, to read the book Blue Ocean Strategy, because when I was first introduced to that concept, it really helped me understand my own mind. It made me really feel like someone else understood the way that I thought, and that I wasn't crazy as it pertains to, being able to either enter into an existing market and turn some red ocean blue, or be able to just not be concerned about competition at all and just go off in uncharted waters and create a new market, right?
Yeah.
That process of figuring that out takes a very special mind.
Sure.
A person that has the type of characteristics that, fearless, right? And then unafraid to try things. And you used the F word earlier, fail, right? Not afraid to step out there and venture out. The reality is that, you got so many people who never get in the game who can always give you play-by-play, right? They can tell you everything that happened, right? But the reality is those of us who are actually in the game are playing it, right? And so you see it from a completely different vantage point than somebody who's standing on the sideline actually, telling you that you failed at something, right? Or you maybe should have done X, Y. Well, that's easy for you to say when you don't have any sweat equity in the game, right? The reality is that you cannot see around every corner. It's impossible, right? But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't walk down the street, right? And so, I just encourage people, to not be afraid to try. If something doesn't work, it just may not necessarily be the right time. There's a opportunity gap, as we talk about in entrepreneurship, that you could have developed a dynamic concept. It's just not the right time. It doesn't mean that it's a failure, just the window of opportunity to introduce that particular product or service or concept is not now. It does not mean that it's never going to be an opportunity to do that, and blue ocean strategy thinking, that's a principle of it. Understanding the opportunity gap, when that window of opportunity opens, whenever you strike. That may have to be one that's placed on the shelf for the right time, right? So you think about AI, and I've been seeing all these articles recently about AI, and then you hear people like Elon Musk coming out saying, now, let us back off of AI, and then someone take the lead on developing how far it should go. The reality is that, it's now the best time. Is this the window of opportunity to introduce AI? But I don't think everybody anticipated that AI would be able to revolutionize so many different industries, right? People may have wanted to define it or classify it to a particular segment. But I think what we're learning is that it can revolutionize and impact all different types of segments, right? So it's kind of like out of control. So people now trying to put confines around it to determine, okay, well, who should lead, the charge on defining what AI should be and how it should be applied, right? And I don't agree with that, right? I think the revolutionizing of it should come from an entrepreneurial community, and those who are able to develop its best use should be the ones who own it, so to speak, right? So that's the long answer to
And
that.
it sounds like you're putting the AI challenge to this group here.
Absolutely, it's going to take blue ocean strategy thought processes to get there.
It's
right?
one of my favorite books. By the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the concept itself to me is just is revolutionary, right? I see companies competing on, and in my opinion, one of the mistakes that foreign workers were making is that we never stepped out there and defined who we were. So I would always ask the question to my team when I first bought the company, who's our core guest? Well, no one could tell us who our core customer was. Well, if you can't define who your core customer is, I mean, that's the basis. You could be developing strategy around things that don't even exist in your world, right? Which is a waste of resources. We were competing against fast food, right? The models are different, right? They're built on volume, right? You look at a company like McDonald's, you look at a company, listen, and we had to take a step back, get excessive discounting out of our system, because you see that in the fast food world, because they're pushing for the transaction. A lot of their margins are really built, around the efficiencies that come through their supply chain, right? So it's like a machine. And so but a company like ours who deals with a fresh, never frozen product that's fully customizable, You know, you're in your restaurant every day, rolling buns by hand, cutting produce by
Now,
hand.
you're gonna get us hungry for
Right.
something we can't get here.
Right now.
I'm just saying. I'm not stopping you, but I'm just saying.
Right. But the reality is
Yeah.
is that and all of those things cost more
Okay.
than the experience that you would get at a fast food restaurant, and should be marketed differently because that appeals to a different customer base. But if you have not defined that customer base, you'll be going after the wrong customer, right? And so, you know, and you build strategy around that, and it becomes ineffective.
Okay.
And so when I think about, you know, blue ocean strategy thinking, it's, okay, we aren't Five Guys, we aren't Shake Shack, we're Fuddruckers, right? And I mean, we've got to operate as if we are the only gourmet hamburger choice, because the reality is that no one offers what we offer. So we're really competing against ourselves, right? And so when you'll never hear some of these major fast food brands tell you that they've got the best quality food in the marketplace, because they know that they don't, right? You know, they're serving a completely different purpose, right? And so that, you know, their structure is built differently, right? And so we want to own that gourmet hamburger space, but you've got to define that and stand on it, right? So that's one of the things that I've done in the first 1 year and 7 months is say that we are not going to be reactive.
Okay.
We're going to be proactive. And those factors that our industry has competed on, we will not compete on, right? And so we're going to take this blue ocean strategy way of thinking and this ideology to redefine and reintroduce Fuddruckers as the premier gourmet hamburger concept.
So I heard a book. I hope everyone made a mental note. Blue Ocean. You could shoot me a note if you don't have something to write that down. That's one of my favorite books. Highly recommend it. I've also heard the commercial for the Fuddruckers that'll be opening near Oglethorpe's campus sooner than later. Quite passionate. I'll leave it open for one last question before we close this out. Any final questions? Let's give a round of applause for our guests.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think I did mention that you're in the greatest fraternity that ever existed. Did I mention that?
I think
at
you
the
may have
beginning?
left that part off.
So we share more than a couch.
That's right.
That we're in one of the greatest fraternities that ever was created, the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but we're gonna leave that alone
Okay.
for another episode. We'd also like to extend a gift for you, which I'll give to you when we head out. And I
All
want to
right.
share with the students in the room. We have a thank you card outside that
Oh,
we'd
wow.
love for all you to sign in before you leave tonight. Just thanking our guests who, again, flew in to spend some time with you today. Mr. Perkins, will you have just a few moments to hang? And
Absolutely.
if the students just like to
Sure.
greet you one last time.
Sure.
And we'll close out with the Jazzy Petrels
Okay.
doing a final selection. And I want to thank everyone that came and attended tonight. Jazzy Petrels, all yours.